what's up, guys? This is Christian Van Buren.
Madi Van Buren.
All right, we are the co-founders of Ripple Effect Fatherhood. And this week, we're bringing a special edition where we're going to call it the Ripple Effect Recap. So what we're going to do this week is we are going to highlight the key pieces of wisdom that we've gotten from each interview. Those of you who have been following us on this journey know that we've been able to interview at least, I'll say 14 different fathers, but I think we have a total of 12 interviews. But a couple of those, we had two men on. And so we've enjoyed every single one of them. And we just want to do a short recap. And hopefully a lot of you guys will go back and watch those full interviews, especially when you hear a piece of wisdom or advice that you resonate with. So we're excited for you. We're excited for this special edition this week, and we hope you guys enjoy it. So the first interview was with Mr. O.B., Officer Barnes. All right. And those of you who had the opportunity to watch that video know that he was somebody who was a father figure in my life. And so I was really blessed to be able to interview him first. He's a Chicago PD, Chicago Police Department veteran. He spent like 20-something years working for Chicago Police Department, impacted a lot of lives. But anyway, his interview was very special to me. One piece of advice that really stuck with me that I got from Mr. O.B. was this. He said in his interview, reach one, teach one. And if I remember correctly, that was the motto that they had for the youth mentorship program that he was working with. And so that reach one, teach one was huge, because I think that that's kind of what we do here is, the idea of that ripple effect is to be able to impact at least one person, to be able to, maybe teach at least one person and have it spread from there, right? Hence the ripple effect. What do you think?
I was just going to ask, since you mentioned that he was like your father figure in your life, like when you were growing up in that environment, like what was the biggest role that he played for you and how did that affect you?
Yeah, so for OB, that's a great question. For OB, the biggest role that he played in my life was, I would say he added that he kept me accountable. And that was big during that time in my life, because I was in high school. My mom was working night shift. I had a job. And so, I wouldn't say I wasn't completely independent, because my mom was still paying most of the bills, but I entered a point in my life where I was experiencing more independence. And so having his presence there for me and keeping me accountable, especially in school, because he worked at the school. He was a police officer at the school. So having that accountability kind of, spoke that into my life, like, hey, I'm here to keep you accountable, but you also need to keep yourself accountable when I'm not around. So yeah. I thought that was huge.
Yeah, that's really important for someone of an adolescent age going into an adult.
Yes.
It's very important to have accountability for sure.
Absolutely. So OB, shout out to you. All right. The next one was with my my wonderful superwoman mother, right? And it was nice to be able to interview her next, because she was, that piece of our, I'll say, mission statement, or the thing that we say all the time about somebody filling the fatherhood role. That's Kylan down there. We'll get him in the video. He's over there. He's eating right now. He's drinking his bottle. But anyway,
I think he's mostly playing with that.
Yeah,
he's supposed to be eating.
Yeah. So yes, the second interview was with my mom. She was somebody who filled that fatherhood role, right? So we have our father figures, and people who fill the fatherhood role. My mom was definitely somebody who did her very best to fill the fatherhood role in my life. And I would say, from my point of view, I appreciate everything that she did. And I think, that she did a great job, not because of anything that I do, but just because of the lessons that I know she taught me. And one of the biggest pieces of wisdom that I got from her interview was to value the time, or she valued the time that she had to parent me, right? Because if those of you who saw her video know that she talked about how she had the opportunity to go get a second job, right? Obviously bills still would have been tight, but maybe things wouldn't have been super difficult financially. However, she knew that if we could still make it and have a roof over our head and have us fed and clothed, that she could have that extra time to parent me, then she would be fine sacrificing not getting that second job. And I think that was like, I don't know, if those of you who didn't watch it, that part got me emotional in the interview. So because I didn't even know that until I interviewed her. So that was a key part of that interview. And I encourage anybody who's watching this to go back and watch that video, because she was awesome.
Yeah. So as far as like the man you are today, like what do you think her biggest influence molded you into the, like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, as far as the man, what do you see in yourself today that your mom instilled in you? Like the biggest part?
The biggest part, Mom, I hope you're watching this, right? Because, and she knows, she knows when I say this, she knows it's gonna click in her mind, like, or not click in her mind, it's gonna remind her of how she did this. But the biggest piece of the biggest lesson that I got from my mom growing up that I still am aware of in my life today is respect for others, right? You want to be in the video now? Respect for others. And with that being said, my mom was really big on respect for my elders as I was growing up. Like, there was no negotiating that. And as I grew older, that was just something that was instilled in me. And I understood the respect for everybody and anybody, right? And obviously that played into my spiritual life, and loving others as I would want to be loved. So that was something huge that my mom really instilled in my life as a young kid. And it just carried on into, because like I said, there was no negotiating. And whenever she hears me say that, she'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So yes, but yes. Okay. Next interview was, Drill Sergeant Barrios. Oh man, this one was great, because he hopped on Zoom from his phone while his kids were inside the boxing gym, in their training and stuff like that. So Drill Sergeant, I am still honored and blessed that you made the time to do this and bless our channel. So with that being said, what I want to highlight from Drill Sergeant Barrios's interview, and I highly recommend anybody go back and watch all these. But if you're gonna go watch his interview, keep an eye out for a couple things that he says. But one of the first things that he said in the interview was he, as a father, gets the opportunity to show what right looks like in his kids' lives, because he, like me, grew up without that positive presence of fatherhood. And I think he mentioned that he grew up without that father figure. And so he had, now having two kids, the opportunity to show what right looks like. And I thought that was huge. But also he talked about looking forward to the journey. And I think I asked him a question of, what would you tell your younger self? And he said, I would tell my younger self to look forward to the journey. And in that journey, he said, the daily accomplishments and the daily fulfillments that you get as a father. So boom, I hope that was huge. I loved that. And that hit me right here. So
yeah. I mean, so like, what would you say, like, as far as enjoying the journey and staying present, like, do you have any tips on how other fathers could do that?
Yeah. So
because I know, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you, but I know, like, being a father, and it's all about, planning for the future. And so sometimes it does kind of get muddled. The present gets muddled when you're preparing for the future of this child. So
yeah, no, that's a great question, babe. And I would say that when it comes to looking forward to the journey, what I've learned in my life and my journey as a father is every day, every morning, make it a point to tell yourself that today is a new day. And when you tell yourself that, you have to really believe it. So whatever you have to do, if you have to meditate, if you have to write it down, if you have to, whatever you have to do to make yourself really believe, because it's true, it's actually a new day. And when you realize that, okay, yesterday doesn't exist anymore, tomorrow doesn't exist yet, so today is its own journey. And in today, I get to look for the accomplishments that I will experience as a father and the fulfillments that I'll get as a father. And how do you get those things? By taking care of your responsibilities and doing your best to provide that positive presence of fatherhood. So shout out Josan Barrios. That was on point, as it should be from a drill sergeant. Okay, next one was from, oh, this one was wonderful. Our first father-son interview. We had Carol Casey and Ross Casey. Great wisdom from these two guys. Carol, obviously, for those of you who didn't see it, was the dad. Ross is his son. And it was just awesome talking to these two guys and just hearing the wisdom from both sides, right? You get the father, who is now a grandfather to Ross's kids, and you get Ross's perspective from what he learned from his father and how it feeds into his experience as a father now. And so a couple things that I got from that interview was, I think Carol said this. He said one thing that he always made sure to teach Ross, his son, was to finish well. Right? Whatever you start, make sure you finish well. I'm not going to harp on that too much because you guys, I think, can take from that what you need to take from it. But they also both talked about the importance of quantity time. So, whatever time that you have to spend with your kids, or whatever time that you have to spend in the presence of your children, or if you're a father figure and you're somebody who volunteers, the amount of time that you have and the amount of time that you dedicate is very important. Okay, so that was I thought that was big.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really hear that a lot. Quantity time. You always hear people talking about spend quality time with your kids, but there's also the quantity of that as well. And I mean, this right now may not be considered quality time with Kylan because we're not playing with him, we're not reading to him, but it's just a joy to be in his presence, even if it's just we're doing our own thing or he's doing his own thing and we're just all hanging out together. So I think that's pretty cool because you don't hear that a lot.
Right. Yep. I thought that was really golden advice, right? And I hope that it blesses and impacts at least one person out there. It's already impacting Kylan. He's like, I know what y'all are talking about. See, woo. Okay, perfect. Next interview was with somebody that I really, guys, just so that you know, I take notes in all these interviews. So this isn't just like notes that I took for today. These are notes that I'm holding on to. But anyway, all right. Next interview was with Mr. Prime Time, Adam Sanchez. And this was excellent. This was great. He's somebody that, if you haven't been able to watch his story, he has an inspiring story, and it's on YouTube. So make sure you check the link on his fatherhood interview on our channel, because I put the link to his story. But one of the biggest things that I got from Adam Sanchez, and shout out to him, by the way, because he's an amazing father of 4, and he just does amazing. But with that being said, the biggest piece of advice that I got from his interview was to have faith, respect, and belief in yourself. And I think the question that I asked him also was, what would you tell your younger self? And it was, to have faith, respect, and belief in yourself as a father, right? And that's something that that's the reason why I think part of the reason why we have such an issue of fathers not being present is because, they don't think they can do it. They don't believe in themselves. They don't, I don't know. What do you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely building confidence as a father is a big plus.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about that these past couple of days, is like being confident in yourself to be a parent to somebody is huge.
Right.
Because I mean, there's a lot of fear when you find out that you're going to become a parent. Like that's kind of, I feel like for me personally, whenever I found out that I was pregnant, like fear was the first thing that ran through my mind. I'm like, am I ready for this? Like, how am I supposed to be a parent and raise a child? Like that's crazy. But over time, you just kind of just have to, even if you just have to wing it, just be confident in the way that you're winging it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's big time stuff. So shout out to Adam Sanchez, all the way from Taylor, Texas. Okay, so our next interview was with two gentlemen who are very close to me. One of them both of them I call my brothers. One of them I've been calling my brother for a long time because our moms are twins, right? And that's Ariel Kodo, my cousin. And then the other one I've been calling my brother for a while now because our dads are twins, right? And that is Raymond Van Buren. So those of you guys who didn't get to see that one, I think it's titled, Ripple Effect Fatherhood Twins, right? Anyway, those are my cousins. So this one was great. It was nice to have them both on. And what I'll say is, yeah, it was just a blessing. I won't get into that. But the wisdom that I got from those two guys was this. Ariel said, one thing, because he's got two baby girls, not babies anymore, but they're still babies to me. They're I remember them when they were super little. But he said, what kind of man do I want my daughter to be approached by? And that's part of the way he conducts himself as a man, but also as a father. And I thought that was huge. So I hope that blesses somebody out there. But also Raymond said, one thing that he wants his kids to remember about him is that their dad always had a drive, always had something that was motivating him to be better and do better.
Yeah. I guess just to play off of what Ariel said about being an example for his daughters, like that was a big plus for me as when we started this, is like showing, like, even if you're raised by a single parent, a mother, for example, you're raised by a single mom, just having a man that exemplifies what men should act like and be like is huge to have in your child's life, to show your daughters, like, hey, this is what a good man looks like, and show your sons, like, this is what a good man acts like, and like how, and I think that's a big important part, and how kind of OB played in your life, right. Showing you how to do it right.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's, yes. Guys, y'all watching this, I know you probably will. Amen. Support everything that you guys said, and it definitely blessed me at the very least. And I think Madi definitely was blessed by y'all's words of wisdom as well. Perfect. Next interview was with Coach Jay, Coach Jandrin. Oh man. So those of you who had the opportunity to watch this video, yeah, he's just a great guy. I mean, I don't even have to go into it. He's just impacted so many lives, and through basketball, but also in other environments. But for me, it was definitely through basketball. And something that I got from him, which has really impacted me a lot, was one, belief in myself, because I'll go back to the fact that he taught me, or he brought that belief in me out of me through basketball, and it's carried on over into other aspects of my life, like the military, like my own, whenever I found out I'd be a father. So thank you for that, Coach Jay. But also in his interview, a couple of things. He talked about cherishing family. And if you didn't have a chance to watch it, I highly recommend you go back and watch it, and just listen to this man talk about the importance of family and cherishing that time with family, because it'll speak to your soul. And then also great advice that I think that he gave, which also is going to be influential in so many people's lives, is when you get frustrated, right? I think he said his mom taught him this. When you get frustrated, step aside, take a breath, and then re-enter the situation. If you can, step aside, take a breath, re-enter the situation. Because as a father, you're going to find yourself frustrated in certain situations, whether it be with your child or with something else going on, whatever the case may be. Step aside, take a breath, and then re-enter the situation. And for my father figures, anybody feeling the fatherhood role, if you are getting frustrated with your little one, or if your little one's a big one now, step aside, take a breath, come back, be goofy, right? Try to laugh it off, and then readdress your frustrations later. So that was big time for me, Coach Jay.
Yeah. I think I heard like a saying, like, or a comparison of reacting versus acting.
Mhm.
And I think that's a big thing because, I mean, obviously we're not all perfect. So every now and then we are going to react instead of act. But I think if we make a conscious effort to act, which by acting, I mean taking a step aside, taking a breath, evaluating the situation, and then proceeding from there versus just reacting based off of, a split second, right then and there decision. I think that would play, a huge improvement in a child's life. And because kids are going to push your buttons, they're going to test you, whether they really mean to or not, they're going to do it.
Mhm.
So I think it's really important to act and not react.
Yes, act and not react. Amen. All right, next one, Ryan Schneider, local real estate agent here in Taylor, Texas. Small town, but he's definitely got a big footprint here in Taylor. And so somebody that we've had the pleasure of meeting recently and growing with him and his family, his wife, Ashley, his beautiful daughter, Alice. We really enjoy you guys, but I really enjoyed this interview because he's a young father like myself, but had a lot of wisdom to give. And so one of the main things that I really got from that interview, one of the main pieces of wisdom was he said the mission field. Well, he said, not verbatim, he said the mission field is sometimes right outside your front door, right? But the way I heard it was, hey, the mission field is right in front of you, right? And so the way I dissected that was, we're always looking for, what is our purpose in life, or what are, especially as a father, what should I be doing in order to make an impact? Well, don't forget the first thing that you were called to be, if you are a father, is a father, right? So that's the first place every day that you can make an impact, is just providing a positive presence of fatherhood to the best of your ability, and then just carry on from there. So whenever you talked about mission field being right outside, and just basically he was just talking about, hey, the mission field, the where you can make an impact is always right in front of you first. So
yeah. And I guess like after getting to know Ryan and seeing all that he's been doing in Taylor, like the word that comes to mind when I think of him is community. And I think that's a big part in fatherhood. And my question for you is, after becoming friends with Ryan and becoming a father yourself and friends with other fathers, like, how important is it to have a community around you as a father? Even if it's just a couple of people, like how important is that to have a community?
Man, I that's a great question. I think that community, one thing that's really been on my mind lately is community. And the reason being is because I realize how important it is to have a group of people who you can count on, right? And who you can confide in. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Confide in, because if you're anything like me, you have an issue telling people when you're going through things, right? Or when you're struggling with something, right? If you're anything like me, you bottle stuff in. But being in Taylor, being around people like Ryan and other gentlemen that I've met in this area, I've learned the value of having people that can relate with you, and being comfortable speaking about things, even if you're not necessarily going through anything negative, but just being able to talk about things that you're going through, or things that have been happening in your life recently. And as it relates to fatherhood, I think it's a big deal when you have a group of fathers that you can confide in. And that's something that we're trying to create here, is an environment where fathers can lean on fathers for advice, or whatever the case may be. So
yeah, I mean, like old school thinking is that emotions is a woman's issue, like only women feel things and have emotions. And I like that recently there has been a movement of men specifically, calling to that, being like, no, like we need to express our emotions too, and it's important for us. Especially when you look at statistics of, depression and suicide rates, like it's very important to make sure you have people around you, a community around you of people that you can talk to and discuss that stuff,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't even have to say anything to that, right? I know that almost everybody can agree with what you said. So that's very important. And that's what we're trying to create here, is that environment where people can get that kind of help, right, in order to mitigate certain things in their lives. So next, right, we had Sergeant Arcy. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to go watch his interview, I highly recommend that you do, because you get to hear the perspective of somebody who became a father for the first time and then had to deploy. I think it was like 2 months later. And not only was it a deployment, I mean, he had to, I deployed with him. We went to Afghanistan. And so, obviously I wasn't a father at the time. But he had limited time to spend with his little one before we got, called to duty overseas. And so I think I just loved having his perspective on there, and the passion that he showed in just talking about fatherhood, I think was really what blessed me the most, was just hearing the passion in his voice. And then on top of that, one thing that he said is, when time is limited, right, because he only had 2 months to really spend with his son before he left, you value the little moments more. So every little thing, changing diapers, being up in the middle of the night, like, he appreciated that stuff because he knew his time doing that was limited. I mean, when he would get back, I mean, we were gone for almost a year.
Yeah.
When he would get back, I mean, his son's almost a year old now. And so he valued those things. So for all my fathers who may not have been in that situation, or who may be looking at that situation coming up, it doesn't really matter, regardless of whether you're somebody who may deploy or may not deploy in the military. It's always important to value those little moments, right? Because I mean, time is limited regardless.
Yeah, whether you're going to deploy or not, like your time here with your kid especially is limited, because they're going to outlive you.
Yeah.
So our time with them is limited. So I think making sure we always have that in the back of our minds is really important, to make sure that we enjoy even the frustrations of it too. It's like, that's important as well.
Right. And next, right, we had a very close friend, I'll say brother of mine, Malik Evans, on. And man, I loved this interview because I learned some things from him that he experienced as a father that I didn't even know. But he became a father while he was in college. And so he was talking about how he was going to class with his little newborn in her little car seat or carrier or whatever. And luckily she was a good baby, so she wasn't really crying during class. But I mean, the fact that he had that level of commitment was I thought that was very commendable. And so Malik, thank you for blessing our channel with your presence. But a few things that I got from him was the importance of consistency in your own life as a father. So, just being consistent. And when he was talking about being consistent, when it comes to things, what am I looking for? The positive things in your life that make you better. So if you're somebody who works out, if you're somebody who gets up early and meditates, being consistent in those things. If you're consistent in being a better person, and being a better father, I thought that was a big thing that I learned. And also he talked about having strength in the process, right? Strength comes through the process. And so if you stay the course, somebody who, maybe has a problem believing in themselves or trouble believing in themselves, you stay the course, you'll realize that you become stronger during, like, while you're in the process or while you're staying the course, right?
Yeah, and I think the important thing that, I took from it was self-care,
Yes.
especially being consistent with self-care. Because as a parent, taking care of yourself first is a hard thing for us parents to do.
Yeah.
Making sure you shower at the very least is a big thing.
Yeah.
When he was first born, there's no telling how many showers we took, probably like 2.
Yeah,
But it's super important, and it's something that goes over your head, especially if you have multiple children. But just always try to remember each day to just make time to take care of yourself. Yes.
Consistently, yes. Okay, so the next interview was with Mr. Keith Lafayette. I hope I said that right, Keith. Keith Lafayette. And I'm not even gonna just go back and watch that one. For those of you who haven't seen it, if you have seen it, then you know why it's important to maybe go watch it again. This man just gave us so much wisdom. We thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your story. Guys, this was an amazing interview about a father who overcame a lot of personal challenges, right? And he talks about how becoming a father really is where he started to make the changes in his life that needed to be made. And so what I want to share from his interview was an acrostic that he gave us. And he spelled out the word father using different words for each letter. F was faithful, A was attentive, T was teacher, H heroic, E enthusiastic, and finally R was resourceful. I'm not going to get into all those because we'll take more time than we have, but you guys just take from that what you need, and I hope that it impacts at least one person out there. But
that one definitely hit with me because of my experience and the work that I've done in the past and everything. And I would definitely at the rehab and, the people that I've met along the way, and their perseverance and strength is, something unmatched. So I definitely would recommend that one for sure.
Yes, that was huge. So go back and watch that one if you haven't already. And then obviously our most recent was with a buddy of mine who I've known for a while now. We've served together, and he's got his own YouTube channel, and that was with Mr. Will Irish, Sergeant Irish. And this was our first time having somebody on there who became a father at as a teenager, right? So he was 16 whenever he first learned that he would be a father for the first time, and that was very impactful to hear his perspective on the things that were going through his mind, how he persevered, how he overcame. And something that he said that I think a lot of us fathers need to really understand and speak into our own lives is that you can still live your best life while being a father. Because a lot of, here, first off, I don't encourage any teenager to become a father, okay, if you can help it, right? However, okay, a lot of even fathers in their 20s, 30s, whatever, sometimes we think that our life has to stop, right? Or our life has to, come to a hold. We have to put things on hold. And I think that was so big that he said, you can still live your best life while being a father.
Yeah. And I think that's really important too, because even though we don't necessarily encourage teenage fathers, that's reality, it happens. And so I think it's really important to get that perspective, especially for those people that find themselves in a very adult situation when they are not adults yet. And just to kind of have that perspective and that point of view of being a dad at that young age. And, when you, something that, my mother always said, if you make an adult decision, you have to live with adult consequences, and good or bad consequences. And it just depends on your perspective of it. And putting your life on hold, you don't have to put everything on hold. Life is going to change, but it adds so much more meaning to it.
Now it's a party of 3 or 4 or 5 instead of a party of 2 or a party of 1, right? But it's still a party though,
Yeah.
So in closing, we hope that you guys are enjoying the content. All we're really trying to do here is make sure that we just push as much content out there that spreads the awareness of the need of a positive presence of fatherhood in the lives of everyone, right? But we're also trying to create an environment where fathers can lean on other fathers for advice, for that belief that they need to be brought from in here and exercised outwardly. So we're thankful for those of you who are watching and going on this journey with us. And we just hope that this and the videos that have been watched and posted and will be watched impact at least one person out there.
Yeah, we're just gonna get as many interviews as we can, because the more interviews you have, the more fathers that will be able to relate to somebody. And that's why we try to get a variety as of many people as we possibly can. And like Chris said, getting at least one person.
Yes. So with that being said, please go back and watch the content if you haven't already. It's been a fun ride already, and we're enjoying every second of it. And as we go forward, we'll be planning events and stuff like that here in the community. So we'll keep y'all updated on all that stuff. But from myself and from my co-founder, we thank you guys for being here. Kylan, say, look, say cheese. Do you look?